equilibrium. So you may have to memorize your high school knowledge on economics. It's a very basic thing. So my learning objective is at the end of the class. So you should have ability to describe market equilibrium verbally and using diagrams. So did you study economics in high school? No. Oh, yeah. So at least one person is studying economics in the high school. So when we talk about market equilibrium, so we have to take into account, we have to make our attention to two aspects, demand and supply. So what do you mean by demand?
What people want.
Yeah, people want, but in technically in economics there are some conditions to fulfill the demand. So it says demand is consumer taste based on the purchasing power. Yes, you should have want, you should have necessity. At the same time, you should have purchasing power and to buy that, purchase that particular product. So then in economics, this is my QD. QD means quantity of demand. Quantity of demand is a function of price. That means quantity of demand depend on price. Here we made assumption. If you think about the real world, demand depend on so many other factors. But in theory, at this moment, to explain the market equilibrium using diagram, we assume that all the other factors that affect demand remain constant in this particular period. So demand is a function of price. Then supply. So what is supply? What is market supply means?
What's available?
Yeah, what's available in the market. In other words, technically, the suppliers' willingness to supply different quantities at different prices in the market in a particular period of time. That is supply. Even supply here, we assume that quantity of supply QS is a function of price. Even for the supply, there are many factors that affect supply in the real world, whether population, technological innovations, these things affect supply. But for the theory, to explain this market equilibrium, we assume that quantity of supply is a function of price. Furthermore, to explain this situation, assume we are talking about the market equilibrium in wheat. We are talking about demand and supply of wheat. So then, this is our demand curve. If all the other factors remain constant, there is an inverse relationship between demand and price. When price increases, people make less demand. When price decreases, people make high demand. So there is an inverse relationship between quantity of price and demand. If all the other factors remain constant that affect on supply, then there is a positive relationship between supply and price. So when price increases, producers, suppliers submit more commodities to the market. So there is a positive relationship between supply and price. If all
You can get that explanation. I can
Suppose-
understand why it's increasing as the price increases.
Use an example.
like suppose in wheat, think about wheat farmers. If the price that farmers get increases in the market, so farmers send more and more product to the market. because as a result of increase in price, profit of farmers increases. So it gives incentives him to send more production to the market if all the other factors remain constant.
Yeah, I thought
Right.
that because I
Okay,
thought about
then important thing is what is the market equilibrium? Market equilibrium is the point where demand equal to supply. So this is the place P star, Q star in the equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. Equilibrium price is P star, equilibrium quantity is Q star. So this is market equilibrium. So then do you have any question in relation to, I explain you what is demand, what is supply and what is market equilibrium. Please ask from me if you have any question regarding this. If you don't have question, then think about the real world situation. I am talking about the wheat market. So government impose tax on commodities. Suppose government imposes tax on wheat farmers. So what happened to the market equilibrium?
What kind of farmers?
Wheat,
Wheat, okay.
wheat farmers. So before the taxes, this is the market equilibrium, same diagram. So when government imposes taxes, what happened? Farmers' profit margin goes down because farmers have to pay certain amount of money to the government from their out of their income, total revenue. So then it leads to reduce the supply. So there is a leftward shift of this supply curve. If the demand remains constant, there is a reduction in supply, then what is happening? Market price increases as P2, quantity decreases as Q1. So this is the simplified impact of tax on market equilibrium. Then suppose in the second time, then government provides subsidies to the farmers, right? So this is the initial situation, P star Q star market equilibrium. Then when government provides subsidy, what happens? Then farmers' profit margin increases. So what is happening? There are incentives for farmers to produce more and more wheat because we are assuming that their objective is to maximize the profit. So it leads to rightward shift of the supply curve. This is called increase in supply. So when supply increases, if demand remains constant, then price goes down like this. Quantity of demand increases as Q1. So this is the impact of supply. Then do you have any question? So if you don't have question, so just tell me, or maybe if you like, you can draw the diagram. Suppose you know that nowadays countries use wheat for the ethanol production. Then as a result of increasing demand for ethanol, it leads to increased demand for wheat, right? So what is the impact of increase in demand for wheat production on market equilibrium due to ethanol production?
What's causing the increased demand?
Ethanol, due to ethanol production. Ethanol, ethanol production, right? So what is the impact? So ethanol production leads to increase in demand for wheat. So then what is happening? Wheat demand, demand curve shift to the right. So then price goes down and demand goes up. So this is the lecture for today. We can meet for the next week. Thank you.